Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Are you a parent trying to understand your autistic teen? Are you a teenage autistic who is trying to understand life and needs some mentorship? Well, my next guest is a mentor to teens and also helping parents understand their autistic child. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage and let's learn more about him. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping out the box that I don't fit in. I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Ken Rabow. Welcome to the show, Ken.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem. So let's start off with, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm a mentor. I mentor young adults ages anywhere from 13 to 28. I've been doing this sort of as a hobby since I was in 2001, and I started doing it professionally full time in 2009. I mentor all sorts of people with issues as anxiety, failure to launch. I worked with great mentors in the world of jazz drumming, percussion, arranging, and they taught me, my true great master, Jim Blackley, taught me the art of life through jazz. And when I started seeing these, at that time, millennials, now Gen Z, young adults having trouble living online and then being in the real world, I just took what Jim had taught me, the art of life through jazz drumming, and made it the art of life through life. And then I started getting young adults who were on the spectrum, who were having a whole bunch of different issues than I was a middle school teacher at that time, than my regular millennial middle school students. And so I started working with them with this system I put together, and it just really took off. And I would say almost half of my practice right now are amazing young adults on the spectrum. And also I work with their parents as well as what I call my parent partners. I do this all over the world, mainly the United
Mhm.
States, online.
And how did you get to, what is your view of when you work with those who aren't on the spectrum to who are those who are off the spectrum?
That's a great question. I guess what Jim taught me was, let me change it. Michelangelo was once asked, how do you take this giant piece of rock and make this beautiful statue? And he
Hmm.
said, it's simple. I just chip away the parts that aren't her. And what I learned from my mentors was to look at someone and see them for what I call their gold and
Hmm.
ignore their kryptonite, look at their superpowers and focus on the gold and build that to find their greatness. And so whether it's people with anxiety or failure to launch, my regular Gen Zs, or school failures, or whether it's trouble with textures or meltdowns when a certain noise or too long in a social situation, like some of my Gen Z people with high functioning autism, or people with very major mental health issues, that same principle works. And so I don't see them differently, although I have to say, I kind of feel that people on the spectrum feel like a higher evolution than neurotypicals, which I call NTs. I
Hmm.
love how they think. I feel that they contribute greatly. And my job for all of these people is to let them walk their path. I just guide them and turn them around from the dead ends.
Right. What would you say the hardest thing about mentoring those with autism is?
Their parents. Sometimes the parents expect neurotypical results. And so helping to educate my parents of my mentees on new ways to look at simple things that my mentees do who are on the spectrum, they slowly learn to do this in a different way, which is what I work with my mentees.
All right. Now, do you see a difference when you mentor the boys and the girls? You
Yes,
see a difference in
yes,
learning?
yes. So when the I'll call them young men because they're 13 to 28. When the young men on the spectrum lose it, they're more likely their PlayStation or their monitor is more like, or their wall is more likely to bear the brunt. And
Oh,
when
good.
my female mentees lose it, they're more likely to either have massive crying jags,
Mm,
hide themselves away, or scream loudly and longly at whomever has wronged them. So it's a different there there tends to be that difference in that situation. Also, my male mentees on the spectrum tend to have more challenges with communication in challenging situations. And my female mentees on the spectrum tend to have more challenges um, with problematic miscommunication. So the female
mhm.
mentees are often misdiagnosed and only get diagnosed in their 20s. I see this a lot because they're a little bit better than, I mean, all teenage boys suck at communication. I did, but the women tend to be on the spectrum, tend to be better at it in the early years. Not always, but more often.
What areas do you see the teens with ASD struggling with the most?
um, let's look at the boys first. Um, Socialization, huge problem. So, a lot of my male mentees on the spectrum are really good online. They're funny, they know how to crack jokes, they can be outrageous and it's cool online. And so they live online and they have real problems communicating. Not all of them, but more. Some are good at it, but most have real problems communicating in real life.
All right. What have you learned from your mentees?
So much. How to look at everything with new eyes all the time. Never take for granted how inexact us neurotypicals are in how we speak. um, the idea of when any of my mentees on the spectrum find something they love, and that's my job as a mentor, is to find the things that they will totally rock. There's such a pounce, there's such a joyous embrace of this new thing that they couldn't find and now they find. They don't go, oh man, I wish I found this. It's just like, let's go. I love that quality.
Yeah, I mean, I notice that a lot of people, it's like they find something they love and they just info dump on anyone who would give them the
Very much
give
so.
give them an air. It's like I got this whole new thing, blah 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 blah.
I do have to teach my mentees on the spectrum once we rock it, once we get to that thing. Remember, not everyone's going to like as much information about ancient Latin cultures as you.
Now, do you see the boys and your girls excel in certain areas more than others?
You mean both of them excelling more than neurotypical boys and girls?
Yeah.
Well, there's always the standard tropes that if they're good at math, they're really good at math. If they're good at creativity, they're really good at creativity. I think it's just I've seen I have so many people. I have people on the spectrum who are artists. I have people on the spectrum who are
Mm.
into, like I said, ancient languages and cultures. I have people who are good at, oh boy, oh my God, IT, dude. if
Mm,
they like IT, not that they were talked into it. This is a problem for Gen Z. They think they should go into this or that because it'll make money. Always a bad choice. But
yeah.
if it speaks to them, I look for their heart. When they're talking
Mm,
about something, we start working on it. If I feel their heart, and this is for all my mentees, you can see their heart shine. That's the thing. And oh my God. So my guys who are programmers or just, I'm not good at this stuff. So there's all these different terminology, but in that IT world, they are so good. They bring that focus. They have that way of looking differently than neurotypicals. And I'm not saying everyone should be that. I have people who are artists. I have all these different, wide range of things. But that's one. If they do well, boy, do they do well.
yeah, I mean, I have a really good friend who's autistic and he loves programming, but he sucks at math.
Oh
And he
no!
can't do the high level
Right.
programming. And he's like, I want to get into this, but I'm like, dude, you can't. You don't know math well enough to
That's right.
understand the deeper qualifications of it. You can do the basic stuff, but you can't really find a work job for because they're going to expect you to know the higher end programming.
That's so profound, Reed. And that is what you've done there is mentoring, and that's my job. My job is to look at someone and say, yes, you have this and this, but you're missing these three. So you're going to hit that roadblock. Let's find out how in your friend's case, let's find out how those programming skills and what are those programming skills? Are they changing concepts? Are they moving A equals B equals C, and then turning it around? What are those, and where else can we bring them? Not necessarily the obvious programming one, but other places. And
Mhm.
you know what? It's so much fun finding that new place. But you did a brilliant job by looking at him and mentoring him to say, you have this, but without those, you're only going to go so far.
Now, do you mentor and help them with like understanding relationships and that you need building blocks before you can get to relationship? You got to have that friendship first.
So yes, a lot of especially my guys, more than my women mentees on the spectrum, want to swing for the fences. So when they've decided it's time for a relationship, they want their long-term partner. Have you ever had a girlfriend? No. So, well, are you comfortable talking on the phone to a stranger? No. Maybe we have to work on a few things. And so we do.
Yeah, I've noticed that I was on a autism application on the phone called Hickey,
What's
and
that?
they have a HIKI. It's for dating, but they have a whole community. And under the whole dating section, it's like these kids just want to jump into a
Yes.
relationship, and a lot of us are saying, listen, you can't just jump and say, I'm looking for a girlfriend. You gotta have friends. You gotta be friends before you start a girlfriend because what if you start dating this girl and you realize halfway through it you don't know anything about her?
So you're absolutely right. There are so many levels to what you're talking about. Before I get one of my mentees on the spectrum, or any of my mentees, to get into dating, they have to first learn how to communicate. And Gen Z are
Yeah.
not great. They're great at communicating during a chat in a video game or those kind of places, but not so much in real life. So we start with emails, and we get a parent to be a parent partner, and we practice with emails communication, and then we go to phone calls, and then I have them call stores and practice how to do that, and then we go to real life, and only then do we start looking for not a girlfriend or boyfriend depending on the person, but like just going on a date and learning how to make small talk, because that's
Mm.
not easy or obvious.
That is one of the hardest things is small talk. I mean, because especially if you're autistic, it's what do I talk about?
Yes.
What do I know? I don't want to. Do I talk about my special interest?
Right,
How
exactly.
long? How much do I
Right.
talk?
Not too
Do I
much.
how when? And then if you got two autistics, it's one of the biggest problems is knowing when to talk and when to stop to talk. Let the other person talk.
I'm a huge fan of getting all of my mentees, especially on the spectrum, but all my mentees using the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And for my men and women on the spectrum, it's especially helpful because it gives them some really good examples of how to let other people talk and how to, I say, try to be a talk show host. A talk show host lets the other person, whether they're great or not great, feel great and truly be interested in them. And that's always the first step I'll tell to people is just be interested in the other person. And if they ask about you, keep it short. And recently I've been using ChatGPT. I've created a whole little sub program for some of my mainly men on the spectrum who are in social situations to literally have ChatGPT practice like passing someone in the hallway at work and how does the conversation go. And we practice it 30, 40, 50, 100 times. And I'm thinking of one guy, and Sebastian just said, oh my God, like everyone's so much more friendly to me since we've done that, because the small talk it is challenging to people on the spectrum.
Yeah, it's called water cooler talk.
Yes.
What do you say to somebody if you meet at like if you're going to get yourself a drink of water at the water cooler,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
in the lunchroom, or you see one of your colleagues, you want to be friendly, you don't want to seem aloof and distant from people, because then they feel
That's right.
that this person's a loner and he doesn't want to deal with anybody.
And they may not even be thinking that, but so many of my guys think that they're thinking about that,
Yeah.
you know?
I think one of the problems with autism is, I know this for myself, is we have a tendency to overthink.
Yes, so true. It's so true. And so what I tell my mentees is, what do you think when someone, this is one of my favorite, if someone comes up to you and says, how was your weekend? What do you think they want to know? And my mentee will say, how my weekend was? No, they don't really care. No? Then why'd they ask? Well, what do you think they really want you to ask? I don't know. They want you to ask how their weekend was. And if you ask that, they'll go on and they'll love you. I said, why do they do that? Why don't they just ask me, tell me about their weekend? Well, because that's how neurotypicals work.
It is. They don't want to talk about themselves unless someone asks them
Right.
to talk about it. It's kind of like there is this book out there called The Cube.
I don't know.
And what it is it The Cube? Yeah. And what it is it gets people to talk about themselves without even asking questions about themselves.
Huh.
And basically all it is you give them a scenario in their mind. You go, I want you to picture a desert island, and I want you to picture a desert. And in this desert landscape, picture a cube. Now, describe the cube. How big is it? What is it made out of?
Hmm.
Where is it in relationship to the desert? Then you move on to, in this desert with the cube, there is a ladder. Where is the ladder in conjunction to the cube? And what is it made out of?
Hmm.
And then you have flowers and the horse and the storm. And then at the end, it turns out to be the cube is you.
Hmm.
The ladder is your friend. The flowers are kids. The storm is trouble. Either it's coming or it's past. And it's basically every attribute you describe each thing has a set of attributes that are basically describing yourself.
Oh, is that fascinating? That's very, very interesting. That sounds like a great exercise.
It is. Anyways, what are some of the strategies you use when you're working with those who have ADHD?
So I have way too many people coming to me prescribed meds by people who shouldn't be prescribing meds. So very often I'll say, let's first see, do you truly need the meds? And there's certain giveaways. So the people who really need ADHD meds, when they take their meds, they don't tend to get hyper. Like they'll be chatty for a bit, but it allows them to focus. And the people who shouldn't be taking the ADHD meds have the effects of stimulants. But I always depend on medical professionals because that's not what I do. I'm an observer. I'm an action-based person. And so to me, there are a lot of people who are given the the meds who really have what I call Ferrari brain. And to me, Ferrari brain is you have this big, powerful, amazing instrument, and no one's ever taught you how to control it. And so what I start doing is I have a giant timer on my screen, and I do, in starting in 5-minute increments, I'll work on different subjects or different pieces of the work we're doing, and I'll keep switching every 5 minutes. And then I'll try 5.5 minutes. I'll try 6 minutes. I'll try different tempos. I'll try changing the speed I'm talking, or how I intone things. And I start to see, for a lot of these people on ADHD, that using these exercises can help. I also have a lot of people that are who have ADHD but are kinesthetic learners. They're the kids who got in trouble, often boys, for standing up in the classroom in the early grades, women teachers giving them heck for it, whereas a male teacher would understand it. And they get up and they walk around because that's how they're processing. So I get them to use a tensor ball while we're talking. And I start to see that their ability to retain information improves. And so for a lot of these people, we use these, and then we start doing grounding exercises. We do diaphragmatic breathing exercises, 5-minute increments or 3-minute increments or 6-minute increments, and slowly building it up over time. And a lot of these people don't end up needing meds. And a lot of these people have that beautiful Ferrari brain, start to rev up and kick butt in the world. So that's part of what I do. Some of them I go, we need to find a really good medical professional. And so we'll look on WebMD and this kind, and we'll look for reviews. And remembering that reviews, a lot of people are, complainers, right? So we look for the reviews where Dr. Smith really helped Timmy with blah, blah, blah. And he was so good with meds. Okay, we got a guy where 57 people said he's good with meds. Let's check him out. And so we put all these pieces together.
All right. Now, we talked about you have parents who don't understand kids.
Yes.
How do you help the parents understand that, hey, this is your son or your daughter, this is how their brain works? How do you basically break it down to terms they understand? So do you tell them kind of like, hey, listen, you got to understand it's also hereditary. Autism comes from you may have it.
That doesn't sell anything. My job is to get parents on board and thinking in a whole new way. They've been dealing with this all their lives. Maybe they got an early diagnosis, or maybe like you, the diagnosis is way, way later. Most parents think that they're bad or that they've done something wrong. And I'm here to tell the parents that if you're a parent of the people I see, the mentees I see on the spectrum, and people like your mom, who seems amazing, they're heroes and they should be feted. And it's really hard for them because very often if they're not in a group with other parents in the spectrum, they really don't know that it's okay not to know. And there's no way that a neurotypical often can understand some of these things. So for example, I have this email. Let me backtrack.
All right.
I often have, and this is in all of my mentoring practice, often there's one parent who is involved and one parent who's either indifferent or hates the idea that there's a life coach or mentor involved. And sometimes, especially now, I'll have like families where there's like mom, stepdad, dad, stepmom. So now I'm dealing with 4 parents. That's not unusual, and that's often. And so almost always when I've got 4, one of the main parents, usually the dad, but not always, is totally against their son being labeled as autistic. And I still to this day am brokenhearted with one of my absolute star mentees. This is 15 years ago. We did all the work. He was on the spectrum. They told me he's on the spectrum, but don't tell him he's on the spectrum. I don't want him to know. I don't want it to limit him. And he never got why certain things didn't work. And he assumed it was because of this. And it broke my heart, but it wasn't my place. He was underage. It wasn't my place to say anything. Got him a great job, but he's an English professor. which is a
Wow.
perfect place to not know you're on the spectrum and be on the spectrum, right? Oh, he's one of those English professors. And so back to my parents. Um, a lot of the parents, when I explain how my mentees think, and I'll give you something that I have an email that was sent out to everyone except me, and then by the dad, and then the mom said, you have to see what her ex-husband wrote, just so you understand why you don't see him and how he's thinking. May I read it to you?
Sure.
I've taken out, the only name I've left in is mine. When this dad mentioned his wife, I just wrote stepmom.
Okay.
I'm happy you're finding value in these meetings with Ken. I'm adding tone. Like we spoke yesterday, your stepmom and I tried to help you with your day-to-day reminders, so I don't see how Ken is making a difference. We are doing the same things. It doesn't work, Dad? I think it's great that Ken also helps you with calendars and reminders, but stepmom and I also do this with you. It really, really doesn't work. The issue is that you can't remember to make them in the first place to begin the list and need to be reminded by us, which defeats the purpose. I'm adding, they're all the words, I'm just adding the color. These actions need to originate from you, and you need to be motivated to try to make this happen on your own. So let's just look at that one little piece. Let's call this gentleman, you make up a name for me.
Steve.
Steve, good old Steve. My best friend's name is Steve. He'd be a fitting name. So I'm writing down Steve so I don't forget it. So I say to Steve, you know you have to do these things. What happens when you are told to go walk the dogs and you say, I'll walk them in half an hour? Well, I go on my phone and I start playing video games. I'm talking to my friends, and before I know it, it's time to go to bed. I said, that makes sense. It's a real art, Steve, to learn how to go into a world that you love, and very much the online world, and then come back into the real world. I'm air quoting for the people listening on radio. And so what we're going to do is you have two choices. Which do you prefer, Steve? On your monitor, we put a giant sticky note that says, when you get to the end of a campaign in these video games, ask to take a break. And then I can get you out. Or if you want, we can put your calendar and your phone to set up a reminder. Oh, I get 100 reminders every day. Okay, how about we clean up the reminders and get rid of the 300 Facebook birthdays of people you don't know, and every single website that you clicked on and didn't realize they were going to send you 80 emails. This dude was getting like 30, 40, 50 emails. We cleaned it up. None of these questions were asked by Dad. None of these questions were done to understand. He's getting so many reminders that he can't use his calendar. We had to clean it up. He actually did both. He liked when we cleaned up the pop-ups that he got the pop-up on his calendar. That helped, but he also had the sticky note just in case. And guess what? 3 weeks later, walking the dog every night, and was doing his showering, okay, every other day. But it was better. It was once a week before. And this is using this and a daily routine that was designed for him.
Mm. Now, I can give you two tools for your mentees
I love that.
and your parents that I use, that I've picked up on from friends that use them. There's a app out there called Timo, Tiimo.
T-I-M, sorry, T-I?
Tiimo.
T-I-I-M-O, okay.
And what it is it's a visual calendar for those who have ADHD and ASD.
Huh.
And you can plan it out on your computer and then sync it up with your phone.
Cool.
And then it gives you reminders. You create your own visual calendar for yourself. So
What was that? I'll check it out. Thank you so
create
much
a whole
for that.
routine, basically. And then that routine, it'll say, okay, I wash my hair. I take a shower at this time. I eat at this time. I rest at this time. And it reminds you, and it has a little timer counting down until it goes to the next one.
How cool is that? What happens if you don't do it? Like, what happens if you say, I'm not doing it today?
If you don't do it, it'll just keep going until the next one. But that reminder will still sit there on your phone.
Okay.
And then
Sounds interesting.
you'll have to look at it and then you'll go, oh, I got to do this. I got so much time left before I need to do this.
Well, you are a Gen Xer, am I correct?
Yeah.
And so Gen Zers are masters of ignoring everything and anything. And they literally spend their whole life going, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
And so I really have to check it and see how it works. I love the idea of the visual calendar, so I'll definitely research TIIMO. Thank you. What
Then
I
the
do,
other one
what?
is called Sensuma.
How do you spell that?
SUNSUMA. It's a
S-U-N-S.
calendar planner that literally you create what you got, and then you can just tell it to focus in on just that day. And that's the only thing that shows up is your activities for
That
the day.
sounds really good. That's really good. What I do with a plain old calendar, like Google Calendar, is I teach them they're not allowed to close a reminder. They either snooze it, which means 9 minutes later, if it's on your phone, you're going to see it. Or on your computer, you can say snooze for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. And then I said, if you're just not going to do it, just drag it and pull it down to a different time. Because one of the challenges that Gen Z have, and I think everyone who lives in this world today, is they don't have Gilligan's Island at 4 o'clock on Mondays, if that's when we
Nope.
start. They can watch things and play things at any hour of any time. So they don't have consistencies. And even in their days, very often, one day is not the same as the next. So what I do with the calendars, I have them block them out in different colors. So they have like a work calendar, a study calendar, walk the dog calendar, a reminder calendar, workout calendar, whatever it is they need. And then they see the different colors. And if we say, okay, you're studying Mondays at 3 and Tuesdays at 5 because of the other stuff, and it doesn't work, they can just drag it and pull it down. And they start to fluidly move each day to work, because Gen Z have to have that combination of an order to learn from and a fluidity. So I would love to see if these do that, because I love the idea of the visual calendar. I think that's very, very cool.
I'll show you after the end of the show. I'll show you. I did a commercial for them,
Okay.
and to get them um to get they sponsored me for one episode.
Nice.
So I'll find that commercial on my YouTube and I'll show it to you.
I love that. Thank you.
Anyway, why do you think women are most diagnosed?
Are misdiagnosed? Because they are better in the teenage years and even the earlier years. Women tend, I'm now seeing some who are not, but in general, they tend to be easier and better to socialize. So when they have breakdowns or screaming jags or crying jags, they just say, oh, she's ADD or she's bipolar or she's just a girl. It drives me nuts if they say that. We fix that, but they fluff it off. Whereas for the boys at those early ages, because they're more likely to be, not always, but more likely to be destructive, breaking a wall or breaking their PlayStation or this or that, the parents are more likely to want to work on that. They can't hide that part that we call socially acceptable. I'm air quoting again. And so very often they're misdiagnosed, these women, in those early years, in those teen years, with ADHD, with bipolar. Gosh, what else have I heard? Depressed, manic, and a neuropsych eval from a good place. And my rule for everyone listening, 80-10-10. 80% of everything in the world is poop, 10% is good, 10% is great. Look for that top 10. Same with neuropsych eval, same with mentors, same with everything. Look for those great ones. And if you're curious and you're not sure, a neuropsych evaluation can really change everything for your child.
All right. Now we talked about this before. How do we get the Gen Z who are autistic outside of their bubbles?
Yes, and all Gen Z outside their bubbles.
Mhm.
They have an added piece, but let me just talk about Gen Z in general, and then I'll talk specifically for people on the spectrum.
Okay.
As I said before, first we have to get them being able to make an email, which they're not going to want. So you practice it with their mom or something. And this, any mentor, it should be helping. And we want a parent partner, mom or dad, to practice these things with. So mom or dad, parent partner sends an email to the mentor, and the mentor and the mentee then look at what they're asking. They want you this. There's a party coming up, and usually you just sit there and play on the phone. Can we have a new strategy? Or you get when it gets loud and noisy, you start getting angry, and no one knows why you're angry. Can you deal with that? So we work on that email, and they start to learn how to do emails, and then we do phone calls, and then we start going to stores that are easy to go to. The extra piece for people on the spectrum is you have to have permission, all you amazing people on the spectrum, to get the heck out of a place where you're overstimulated. So it's fine to go with family or with friends to a place that is uncomfortable, whether it smells, whether it sounds. What else could it be? I think those are the two main ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those ones I see. And it's okay if you get to a point on the freakometer. So if it's 1 to 6, you're cool. When you hit 7, start knowing you have to de-escalate. After 7, it's gonna go. So you have to give yourself permission to get out of that situation. Take however much time you need, whatever soothes you. So if a walk soothes you, cool. If playing a short game on your phone, not a 3-hour game, but like a 5 or 10 or 15-minute thing, just to calm yourself down, and also explain to your parents or your loved ones, whomever, that you need this to decompress. You deserve this. You should take this. And it's not like one of my mentees recently said to me, I wish I didn't have this. I wish I didn't need this extra time, because she's starting a new job and they wanted to start in 2 weeks. She just graduated and she was having a meltdown because she needs more time. So I said, I'll call her Maeve. Maeve, you need more time. Take more time. A lot of businesses now say that there's some sort of code that if you are neurodivergent, they use that word, you have accommodations for that. They don't use the word accommodations, that's in school, but whatever the word they use.
Mm-hmm.
I said, let's take advantage of that. We did it. We wrote the email. They said, no problem. You can start in July 7th instead of, I think she was going to start June 16th or 17th or something. And she was so upset that she needed it. I said, we all have stuff that we can't do. You know, I was a jazz drummer. I have tinnitus now. I wanted to buy this monster set of headphones. I put them on. The next day, it sounded like someone was putting an air horn in my ear. I can't buy it. I'm PO'd, but that's what I have to live with. This is what you have to live with. But look at what everything you can do. So I say to anyone listening, and I say to parents, you deserve to take the time in social situations to decompress. And at the end of a certain amount, it's okay to go home and decompress. Just let the other people know you need that. Communicate that to them, because don't assume that they understand that you need that. And the more you can explain it, the easier your life will be. And you'll be able to do what this amazing gentleman has been able to do, which is to go out into the world, to go do this travel, do all of these things. And you'll be able to do the same things. Not the
I mean, to
same.
give you to give you a story about, I mean, I felt what she felt, but I literally had a meltdown.
Mm,
I had all the time in the world to prep for school before I traveled. The minute I got to the airport and the guy behind the desk said only one parent's allowed at the gate, and
mm,
we fought with him and fought with him, and the guy's like, I'm sorry, these are 9/11 rules now. Things changed. I broke, I don't know what happened. It's like something flipped in my head and I went into a meltdown.
yeah, it makes
I just
sense.
started, I
Makes
just
sense.
started crying and crying and crying. And my dad didn't understand what was happening. My
No.
mom was more into it than anything. She knew what was happening. And so my dad just said, listen, your mother will go with you to the gate. And the guy's like, that's fine. There is a clear gate, a clear wall with a revolving door with a security guard there. You can sit on the other side and still be at the gate. So we get to the gate. My mom goes, hands me the phone. Talk to your father. I'm gonna go into the store, get a newspaper for him and some candy. She goes in, gets the paper, comes out. My dad's like, "Would you stop crying? You're making a fool of yourself."
Aww.
And my father, I mean, God rest his soul, he's passed away. He still didn't understand me to this
No.
day.
Yeah.
And we put the paper into the revolving door in the candy, spin the door, and he falls on his butt.
That's ironic.
It's ironic, yeah. And I'm still crying. And then the minute the gate call goes on, it's like a light switch flips, and I stop crying.
Yeah.
I get on the plane and I sit down, send a text photo of myself to my father, me sitting in the plane with a smile on my face, and it's
Aw.
like nothing ever happened.
It makes absolute sense. So another piece for our amazing mentees, future mentees out there, people on the spectrum, is unexpected things are going to gripe your liver. They're going to kick your butt. And you have to be okay with telling people in your world, like Maeve, her boyfriend, she loves her boyfriend. They're getting along too so well. And when I met her, she could not have any relationship. So this is way, way advanced in our work now. She has a great long-term boyfriend, and I think he's awesome. I really like him. And so she had to explain to him that if you said we were going to go get pizza, and then 3 minutes before you said, "Hey, let's go get sushi," she's going to have a meltdown. And so unexpected things are a challenge. And when you can, if you can say, this is what's going to happen, also think to yourself, what if these three things happen instead? How would I respond? Or two things, or one thing. And this is so hard for people on the spectrum, but it's an exercise. If you can think of another option, and this will start changing you from, this is what's happening.
Mhm.
And it's not going to magically stop the meltdowns, but it'll start opening up that when you're focused on how something should happen, that you at least have one. If you have one, you can have two, you can have three, you can have four options. And as you practice this, these amazing people on the spectrum, you'll start to see that when something is unexpected, you'll have less, I don't know what to call it, that feeling that I feel from my mentees when they talk about like what you went through. It's the whole body. It's like there's no words, and it's like, so whatever that is, you'll have less of that as you
Mhm.
practice this. What if, what if, what if? Don't go nuts with it. Don't give me 100. But as you start to do that, you will be less focused on that one outcome. Unexpected things is huge.
Mhm. I mean, one of the things I talk about in my book is the best way to have an experience is bring someone with you.
True.
Because, and I say, the reason this is because when you're by yourself, you're focused on everything going on.
It's true.
But when you're with somebody else, you're focused on just the world of you and that friend. You're focused on just the closeness of the friendship or whatever, and you're not focused on everything else.
It's a
You're
great
focused
idea.
on just that small world of the two of you.
Right. That's a
That's why
great idea.
time seems to fly.
Yeah. And someone you trust. It's really it's a great coping mechanism. Um, I like that. That's a great idea.
I mean, one of the other things I say is to those who want to step outside of the comfort zone and want to have experiences. I'm like, you got to remember one little thing, and that is an experience is an experience, good or bad.
That's very true.
You did something. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You still stepped out. You still put that little check mark on that box that said, I did this, instead of sitting there saying, why did I not do this?
And I love that idea. And an experience is an experience. I would add this. Um, always say to yourself, what did I learn from that? You know, how can I take that and get something out of it? Even the worst experience, there's something you can get out of it.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's, you know, you fall on your butt and you're thrown off. This happens a lot to people on the spectrum. They're doing things, something unexpected happens, and all the things that they've been doing, the whole week's been good, the whole 3 weeks have been good, and now they're back to zero. And my answer to that is, cool, how do we start again? How do we start again today? How do we start again? How do we start again? And each time you say that, you will start learning that there's no right or wrong, there's no judgment. It's just, how do we start again? And as you focus on that, when something unexpected or new happens or that throws you off, you'll find a way to begin. And then you can do what you've done, which is to go out into the world and be okay with the
Mhm.
good and the challenging experiences.
I mean, not to bring things back to me, I mean, but to give you a good example of something throwing me off, I was flying out of Germany and I misread my time schedule. I got to the airport, got through baggage check-in just as the plane was boarding.
Oh no.
And this was a plane you didn't walk through a little walkway, you had to walk out onto the tarmac.
Oh my.
So I was lucky enough to make it to my plane. And I remember something my well-being advisor had said to me before I left, and that is, do not panic. Because if you panic, you're gonna turn your whole world upside down.
Yes.
Because you won't be able to think. You're not going to be able to see things clearly. You need to think with a clear head. And then there's another story like that. I was in Italy and it was getting late and I kind of lost track of how to get back to my hotel.
Mm.
I found a police station in the train station
Huh.
and I remembered to myself, keep calm, and I couldn't wait because the only person in the station that spoke English was busy.
Oh my.
I walked up to one of the cops behind the glass window and I said, can you tell me if this is my, he's like, don't speak English. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, I understand, but is this road lead to this hotel? And he nodded his head. I'm like, thank you. See.
well done.
And I said, okay. And I followed that road back right to my hotel. And I remembered you gotta stay calm. And that's,
What
I'm
you did,
telling everyone out there,
what you did
key to
there,
everything is stay calm.
right? But what you did there is huge, and it's something that a lot of Gen Z don't do, and that is, you've made the voice in your head your helper.
Mhm.
And for so many Gen Z and also people on the spectrum, Gen Z, the voice in their head, I will say to them, if the voice in your head was your parent, it would have been arrested years ago for child abuse. And that voice is supposed to be your friend. They go, that voice is supposed to be my friend, is my worst enemy. I said, we have to help you do what Regis did here to get it to help you say, stay calm, don't panic. We can work this out. But that voice has to be changed. It's not magic, and you're not wrong for having trouble doing that. Just know that what Reed did, you can do over time. If you believe that that voice can start being your helper, that's the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, even today, I think a lot of kids, one of the problems they see with why they don't want to leave their own comforts is they see the world as a bad place. There's
Well, they
so
were
much
told the world
negative.
was a bad place. Look
Yeah.
what their parents did. No, you can't go to Jimmy's across the street. You might get mugged. Let me drive you. Let me drive you here. Let me drive you there. The parents have told them the world's not
Mhm.
a safe place. Who do we blame?
The parents.
Well, I won't blame. They're adults now.
But
There's enough blame
yeah,
to go around, right?
but the thing is, I say this in my book. I'm like, you got to look at it like this. I mean, why do you think when you hear the news, they always tell you the good story in the commercial, but then when you turn it on, it's negative, 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 good,
Yeah.
because they know if you listen to the good, you're not going to listen to the bad.
Hmm. My
And
apologies.
what people don't realize is there's this much bad to this much good.
It sounds nuts. I think the world is an amazing place. I
It
believe
is.
that most people are good. And I also believe that we amplify the things we focus on. There's so much things in the politics, there's so much things in culture right now. And all I can say is if you look for good, you'll see good. And
Hmm.
Wayne Dyer had this great line. He said, on my answering machine, that's how long ago he told this story. Um, It says, "Hi, you've reached Wayne Dyer, and I want to feel good. So if the message you're going to leave is going to make me feel otherwise, please call Dr. Phil." And I think that that's a wonderful way to look at things is feed yourself good things. Feed yourself inspirational things, whether it's books, whether it's stories, whether it's songs, whether it's people, whether it's places. Look for what makes your heart sing, and your heart will keep singing.
I mean, that reminds me of another great story. I was at school and it was exam time,
Mm.
and I'm stressing out, never taking an exam in my life.
Oh,
So I'm walking this path that one of my well-being being advisors told me about.
mm.
I get to the end of the path and I turn around and I head back. I get stopped by campus security. I'm like, okay, how can I help you guys? They're like, they ask for my IDs and like, okay, and I hear the other guy say, we got him. I'm like,
Oh
okay,
my gosh.
I'm like, okay, what's going on here? She's like, no, nothing to worry about. We were just getting calls, people saying that you're worried about you, that you were acting sporadically,
Oh my.
irrationally. I'm like, I was just dancing to music because I was de-stressing. They're like, okay, thank you very much. And they let me go. The next day, I get an email from the dean of students. Hi, Reed. How are you doing? I'm glad you're okay. If there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to email me and make an appointment with my secretary. I email him back, being the person that I am. I'm like, hi, Dean, I'm doing fine. I was just de-stressing to music. If you really want to help me, you can make it so I don't have to take my finals.
That's funny. Uh,
Then
it's interesting,
5 minutes 5 minutes later, I get back. I'm sorry, I can't do that, but if you still want to make an appointment with me, contact my secretary.
right?
Have a good day.
So it's interesting. Um, being who you are and being someone on the spectrum, sometimes we feel noticed, and we feel
Hmm.
noticed not in good ways. And what was great about that situation was that you owned that this is something you were doing. You weren't doing anything negative,
No, I
doing
wasn't.
something that worked for you to de-stress. And it's even in that nice way, I'm air quoting again, it's a little bit of shaming for you doing something that's a coping strategy, specifically because you're on the spectrum and you need to read, because
Hmm.
this is how you are. So other people, sound or vision or whatever. It's that movement that helped you get back into your body. And so I get it. You know, a lot of universities these days are so afraid of, God forbid, something happens to a student or they self-harm, they're going to get sued. So they've become over concerned. And by the way, and I see all these emails from like people helping out my mentees in university for this thing or that thing. And a good 25% of them actually really care and really help our mentees. And 75%, this is just my observation in the last 2-3 years that I've been seeing this, or the last 5 years, are just going through a script of what they're supposed to say
Hmm.
because legal said you should do this so our insurance doesn't get taken away. I love that you owned it. I love that you, even when the dean, you didn't see it as shaming, you owned it and you made it even more glorious. And that's what I want people listening and people on the spectrum to learn in their own way, is how to own themselves.
I mean, one of the things I talk about is listening to your body,
Mm,
knowing your triggers.
yes,
If you feel yourself getting tired and you start getting anxious and a little angry, stop. Take a breath back.
that's
Take a
wise.
nap.
Yes,
Because if you know your triggers, you can stop your meltdown.
right. But it takes a while to know your
Hmm.
triggers. Sometimes you need to have a mentor or an outside person, not the family because they're too close, help you understand them. And sometimes, like yourself, you're blessed that you've been able to be self-aware to these points to have these things. But for those who don't know how to figure it out, know that there's people out there that you can ask for help to learn to
Mhm.
understand your triggers. And then you can do just what Reed did, which is use those to become mindful.
Anyway, what issues do you see Gen Z having?
Oh my gosh. We've talked about a lot of them. I guess the main issue is, and it's funny because it's a blessing and a challenge. The challenge is Gen Z live their lives online, which means that they're in their head, which means they're not in their body. Anxiety is at a level, I worked with boomers as fellow musicians. I trained Gen Xers as students in music and singing and arrangement and all that. Not singing as music. I started to teach at middle school millennials and mentored them, and then I've mentored Gen Z. And the level of anxiety has gone from, I would say, boomers. We never talked about anxiety. We talked about depression in boomers. Gen Xers, still more depression, a little bit of anxiety. Millennials, you start to see anxiety kicking up 10, 20, 25%. Gen Z, 90% of my Gen Zs come to me with anxiety. They lose it within 3 to 9 months. But here's the thing. You say to a Gen Z, how's your anxiety today? They go, fine. And I see him tapping and I see him breathing shallowly and I go, what number out of 10? 10 is like, I need to be hospitalized. 1 is I'm fine. What number? Oh, 8. I said, 8 and you're fine? He goes, yeah, I'm always 8. I'm used to it. So we have to first be careful how we ask, and we have to help them learn how to be in their bodies. Huge thing, if they're cool with it, is go for a walk. And if you can walk around the trees, oh my God, like a park or a forest would be even better. If you can walk around trees, it changes everything. Without music on, without anything on, just go for a walk. 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
Mhm.
2 minutes, I'll take. And then to learn how to breathe, diaphragmatic breathing, to
Mhm.
learn how to ground. So the first thing I see in Gen Z is they're not in their bodies. But this is an amazing generation. They truly care about each other. They truly care about social issues. Are they doing it in a way that is best? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We always notice the bad stuff, right?
Mhm.
In any group, it's that loud 2 or 3% that are the, how do we put it? The challenging ones that we always notice. We notice the tail, not the dog wagging.
Mhm.
And so Gen Z need to learn how to be in their bodies, and they have to learn it's okay to disconnect, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable disconnecting. It's okay at night to put your phone charged on the other side of the room. And if it really drives you nuts, okay, bring it back, but try to keep it there. And so that is the first thing that I think Gen Zs really need to look at, is being in their bodies, whatever way that works.
I have a great exercise for your mentees if you
Let's
want
hear
to
it.
use it. I did this at school and it was so much helpful to me. We had a labyrinth, in-ground labyrinth. And what I did was I'd walk into the center of it, lay down, put my jacket under my head, close my eyes, clear my head, and try to identify every sound I heard.
Wow.
In that way, my mind just started to quiet itself down and listen for everything around me. Students walking, birds singing, the rustling of the wind, leaves blowing in the air. And I just sit there and I would try to identify what I was hearing at that time.
And that's a brilliant example of mindfulness through sound. And what each person needs to do is understand which is the way, like, so your dancing was a kinesthetic, mindfulness through movement. So some people it's visual, some people it's smell, some people it's sound, some people it's feel or, movement. You have to know, first of all, which one works and understand it could be different at different days or different hours or different moments. So what you did is a perfect example of a way to be mindful that spoke to you. Very well done.
Now, how do you help someone with anxiety? I mean, I have anxiety to the point I have what's called anticipatory
Mm,
anxiety, meaning when I travel, I get so anxious, I almost talk myself out of it. It took my mother twice, two different times to talk me into saying, "Hey, you're gonna have a good time. Go, enjoy yourself."
okay, so let's take your example. But before we do, let me just say there's 5 kinds of anxieties that I work on, that I've been working on for the last 20, almost soon to be 23 years with mentees. They're body, which is being in your head, not in your body. I
Mhm.
call it body. Mind, we're talking about the negative self-speak. Batman takes time dancing. Uh, or the second one is totem, the third one. Totem means where it's an object. In a way, that's sort of what you're doing. You're creating the travel becomes a totem. And so it's the totem that becomes the anticipatory anxiety. We'll talk about that in a moment. The next one's time. Time represents father, going out into the world. So time can be an anxiety. And the last one, this is weird, is distance. And that may also be one for you. So when I'm so far away from my room, my house, my neighborhood, my city, the anxiety kicks in. And each of those combine to, I've seen almost 20 or 30 variations. Let's look at yours. I'm going to call it a totem. So it is an object, which is, give me an example of one of them.
I
Where were you
will,
going?
I'll give you the most current one.
Please.
Last, was it this March or last March? I flew to a podcast conference.
Oh, wow.
The week going up to it, I was getting so anxious that by the time the trip came to give my mom a kiss goodbye, I almost broke down into tears. But I was lucky enough that I had a nice Uber driver who was talkative, who kind of calmed me down, brought me out of my mind and onto something else. So it kind of distracted me from what I was thinking.
Right on. Okay, so oddly enough, the totem, that journey began with giving your kiss to your mom goodbye. That's
Mhm.
where the totem began. And so, um, what I would do, and you looked for, one of the things you did really well was you looked for someone that would be a soother, someone to make the
Mhm.
world safe. What I hear in this is the world's not safe. I'm talking about the inner head, your inner mind.
Mhm.
And so when I kiss my mom goodbye, it's like, oh crap, I am now unsafe. And so you found, thank God, you found this nice Uber driver and go, oh, the world is safe. And so now you can move out into the world. So the totem is out into the world. It kicks in with a kiss, give my mom a kiss goodbye. So the first thing I would practice is go to places in your city that are uncomfortable but won't make you freak. So 5 to 7 on the freakometer. And say, I'm going to Schwartz's Bakery. It's noisy. I don't like it, but they have a really good bagel there. And then go and kiss your mom goodbye and see how you start to feel. If you start to freak and you start to get that feeling, say, you know what? I don't have to go today. I have the power to say yes or no. And that's one of the things I'd like you to learn. Even if you're flying to a podcast and you, before you get in the plane, because you're going to have trouble if you tell them when you're in the plane, I don't want to go anymore. At any point, you need to give yourself permission. Say, Reed, you don't have to go. At any time, you can say, I'm going to go back. I'm in charge. And then use these different pieces. Practice with the bakery, practice with a club, practice with something that's noisy, kiss, give your mom a kiss goodbye, because that's a thing, and see what's going to happen. Then the next level is think about what you're going to get. When I go to this podcast conference, what are 3 things I'm going to like? I'm asking you, Reed. What are 3 things that, well, you went and you did it. What are 3 incredibly cool things that happened there? Give me short answers.
Made new friends,
Sweet.
um, enjoyed the location,
Nice.
and got a bunch of people to come on my show.
Sweet. Got guests. New friends, enjoy location, and guests. And so before you kiss mom goodbye, you have to say, I am going to meet new friends. I'm going to have a wonderful time in this city. And I'm going to have people who are incredible who are going to want to come on my show. And then kiss your mom goodbye and see if you slowly can change that totem to a success totem. Each of those pieces, practice in the city, mom's kiss is the kickoff. Practice the 3 wonderful things. Try it with a bagel place. With you don't all in the audience. You don't have to go to a bagel place. But if you do, please bring me one.
I mean, I can tell you, my mom and I, every year we go to Shakespeare plays. We're subscribers of Shakespeare, so that's noisy. I mean, I'm the total opposite of most autistic. I am very outgoing. I'm confrontational.
Yeah.
You get in my face, I'll get right back in yours.
Good for you.
I'm the type of person that I don't like being pushed around, but I'm very outgoing. I like to go to parties, but once it gets too noisy, I need to find that quiet zone.
Exactly. Good for you. And one of the things I've noticed I haven't had 23 years of people on the spectrum, but I probably easily had 15, 17. No 2 people on the spectrum are alike, like at all. You can look at people with ADHD, you can look at people with mental health issues, and you'll have more similarities. With people on the spectrum, they're all different. And so
there's a saying that goes, when you meet one person on the spectrum, you meet one person on the spectrum.
I like that. I really do like that. So you are doing the right things. And what I say to the people listening to this, whether you're parents, a person on the spectrum, or you are someone on the spectrum, there are mentors. There are people. Look for people who get you, who appreciate you for you, and will help look at you as a human being on your hero's journey, allowing you to move forward on your quest.
And finally, where can people find out more about you and everything else you do?
Thank you. You can go to one of 2 places. If you are looking for mentoring, either myself or the people I train for mentoring, you can go to mentoringyoungadults.com, mentoringyoungadults.com. An easier way is you can just go to my name, which is Ken Rabow that's my email, kenrabow.com, KENRAB as in Bob, OW, kenrabow.com. And you'll find not only the courses to help people who want mentoring, but also I train people. Like, you would make a great mentor, really, seriously, Reed. So I train people who would love to be a mentor, and then they end up working with me. So people come to me. I often have waiting lists. Sometimes I don't. Right now I have 2 spots open, but we have mentors who are there to also work with people, and I train them. And we also do workshops on all these subjects. So kenrabow.com is an easy place to get it. Reed, it was such a pleasure speaking with you and meeting you. And I'm going to be talking about you with my guys, about someone who truly has gone out into the world and has really made a difference, and who's allowed the being on the spectrum to be a superpower, as it should.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Ken Rabow, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Ken, for that very kind compliment. See you in the next one, everybody.
Suffocating and overcomplicating it while I
acceptance.